How I plan to communicate effectively with faculty and other team members, I have four best practices that I consider important in this regard. So, the first one is going to be to actively listen. The second one is going to be to respond in a timely manner. The third one is going to be to ask questions. And the fourth one is going to be respectful and set boundaries. So, the first one, actively listen, is very important when you're communicating. So, communication is a two-way road. So, you should be able to talk to the other person effectively, but they should be able to talk to you effectively as well. And of course, that is going to involve you being able to listen. So, you have to be able to listen to the other person and understand what they're saying, and vice versa. So you also want to be able to respond in a timely manner. So if somebody's communicating and they try to get something across and the other person doesn't respond quickly enough, it can lead to misunderstandings and frustration. So of course, there's not always going to be direct communication between the two people involved, but there should be as little downtime as possible between communication and or asking something and getting a response. So the third best practice, ask questions. So this goes back to the same thing of avoiding miscommunication. So if you don't understand something, it always makes sense to try to get clarification on the things you don't understand, as opposed to just assuming and then causing frustrations for both parties later down the road. The fourth best practice is to be respectful and set boundaries, and I think this one is important when it comes to communication between coworkers. Like I said, you can't always be available, right, to talk. You have your office hours or your times when it's appropriate to call somebody, message somebody. You're not going to be calling or messaging somebody at 3 a.m. in the morning, right? So you should be respectful of other people's boundaries, be able to set your boundaries, and vice versa. As for why I think it's hard to communicate in higher education, so in higher education, a lot of the people and parties involved are titans of their field, right? So you have people who are working on getting things published. They've worked for years doing research. So can you imagine somebody who's been working that diligently and hard being told, hey, I think you're doing this wrong, or I think you could be doing this better? It might rub them the wrong way. So the best way to think about this, or how I like to think about this, is just to be respectful with one another and to have respect for your colleagues and coworkers. So I think about Einstein and Bohr. So Albert Einstein and Niels Bohr, two of the greatest physicists of our generation. They famously did not agree with one another on several things, but they were able to debate it and still hold each other in very high esteem. So, sort of like saying, I don't agree with you completely, but you're a brilliant scientist, and some of the things that you do say make a lot of sense. So, last thing, de escalating disagreements. So, I think the best way to de escalate disagreements is for both parties to be professional and respectful. So, if you have respect for your colleague and your colleague has respect for you, even if you disagree on something, things shouldn't get too out of hand. You should also be able to utilize mediation. So if you can't figure something out, maybe take it upon somebody else and they can help you figure something out, or maybe help you meet in the middle. And the last thing I want to say is just to know when to apologize. So everybody can be wrong sometimes, and it's not easy all the times to admit that you're wrong. But when you are wrong, I believe it's important to be able to come to the other person and tell them, hey, I was wrong and I apologize for my behavior, my ideas, etc. This helps to keep respect between the two parties, right? The other person is going to respect you more and hold you in higher regard for being able to do that. And it opens you up and helps to keep that healthy communication going. So thank you for your time.